Bryan Medlin, recurring guest. Welcome back.
Oh man, it's good to be back. Love talking some wrestling.
Man, I'm so excited to talk. You were on the ground floor at the World Cup all weekend. What was it like, man?
It was a special thing. I've had this is actually the third time we've had athletes on the World Cup team. The other time I was in Iowa, I was able to be there. The one time I was in Yakutsk, I wasn't. It's just a dual meet is just this different atmosphere, as you know. It's just that us versus them mentality. I know there's a lot of camaraderie between teams, but it's just such a special time when everybody's kind of competing together, and it's really everybody scoring points, and it's that sum of aggregate gains that gets you to the end result, which is a World Cup championship. So it was pretty cool, pretty special.
Yeah, and Iran brought the heat in the finals on Sunday night. That was an amazing duel. I mean, I could watch that duel meet all day.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. They have a good team. They've got kind of a stockpile of guys in the upper weights that they could kind of mix and match, and they did a good job of kind of hiding their lineup all week. You weren't sure who you're going to see at 65 kilos. They announced him as a backup early in the thing. There's all this like smoke and mirrors type stuff, and figured you'd see Yazdani Chariti in the 70 kilos, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and we'll go into the finals match. I'm so excited to get into each one. So you were there with Zane Richards, who was the Team USA starter. He went 2-0. They put Suriano in Saturday night. And for folks who weren't watching, it was Mongolia Saturday morning. The U.S. won there. Georgia Saturday night, steamrolled those guys. And then Sunday night, it was U.S. versus Iran. And so Zane Richards wrestled Saturday morning and Sunday night and just looked great. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, no, I think Saturday morning was the performance. He wrestled the way we know he's able to wrestle. You see him compete in the room. You can see him compete in these moments and know that greatness is in him. And the guy he wrestled, was 2022. He was the world bronze this year. Gave Gilman a really good match in the worlds, and everybody knew it was going to be a tough match. And Zane got the call in the morning, and was going to wrestle first, and we knew it. And Zane did a great job of really showcasing his skills, and gave him, put a lot of points on the board, and did a lot of things that he's really good at, and really wrestled well. Was really happy for him.
Yeah, he tech the dude. I mean,
Yeah.
tech the world bronze medalist. It's like crazy. I mean, for all of us who know Zane, it's not, but looking from afar, you thought maybe that one was going to come down to the wire. But I love watching Zane this weekend was the most I've watched him at one time in a while. He does really good at like not reaching out. Like he doesn't extend his arms. He's always real short with his arms.
Yeah, and that's been an area of focus with them, especially with the two guys he competed against. The Mongolian's got a really good arm spin. Zane used it, countered it really well to a score of his own. And then the Iranian he wrestled later on was really good at being real stingy with wrist. We were able to find a lot of matches on him. And yeah, Zane did a really good job of being focused and disciplined and in good position for the majority of his matches.
Yeah, it was awesome to see, man. And gosh, he's been at it for so long. He just loves wrestling. He's probably like one of the best dudes ever to coach. I mean, he just seems like he loves it.
Yeah, he's been great to be around. I've been lucky enough to have been around him since he was pretty young, and just he's one of those guys. When you go in the room, he fills you up as a coach. You see him, and he makes you want to be a better coach. He makes you want to study harder and think about his technique more because he's so passionate about it, and he'll do literally anything you say. He's just a great athlete, great sportsman, and great representative of our program.
Yeah. And so when did you guys get in? Kind of take us behind the scenes. Like when did you get in? When's the first time you saw Iran? Was it in like the warm-up area? Like what's going on with that?
Yeah, we didn't actually see Iran until the weigh-ins the first day, or I didn't. I think some people kind of walked by their hotel because there was that they had gotten visas, and then there was a rumor that three of them didn't get visas, and you were reading some social media stuff, so you weren't really sure if they were all going to be there as a team. And I I personally kind of think that it was just more of like adding to the drama of the duel, you know, oh, we're not very good, we're not very good. And they brought their very best team minus one guy, I thought. So you know, it was pretty good. But we got there on Monday. Team USA had a camp. We actually trained at the Big Game Wrestling Club all week. What a phenomenal facility that is, ran by the Crew family. They were amazing. Stayed, you know, opened up early for us, stayed late for us. We were able to cut all of our weight there, and you know, they did such a great job. But we had a couple practices on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, just kind of one structured workout a day, where you know Coach Zadok was really kind of, you know, looking back, he's such a good mind for the sport. I think he knew we were wrestling Iran, and a lot of the positions that he kind of focused on, you know, you saw him pop up in matches that, you know, we were going to wrestle later on. A lot of people were kind of like, is Iran going to win? Is that UWW team going to win? But you know, I think Coach Zadok, the mind he is, kind of already had it in his head that we were going to be wrestling Iran eventually, but I don't know that for sure.
So he's doing like a. It's just cool to think that all these studs are on the team. You got JB, you got Zane, you got Gross, all these guys that but then they're in there and Coach Zadok's leading a practice. It's like a high school coach over with his guys. Like that's how it works. Just kind of a normal practice.
Yep. Guys got 10 minutes to warm up on their own, and then he had areas of technical stuff he wanted these guys to work on, and you know, put them through that. And then they were kind of released to their personal coaches on what they needed to do. Some guys wanted to wrestle a little bit of live as the week went on, obviously taper it off, but you know, some guys just they want to do some hard stance motion goes, you know, just to spike their heart rate. It's kind of different and unique. I try to kind of watch everybody to see how they do things, and you know, each person's a little bit different, and you do have to coach to the athlete, but you know, it is kind of interesting watching how all these high level wrestlers get themselves ready to compete.
It's so cool to even just be in there watching guys warm up. It's just probably amazing. Did you know? You mentioned earlier you got the call Saturday morning. So did you know Zane's wrestling 2 matches, 1 match, or you don't know until day of?
I didn't know at all. Like I thought, you know, going into it, Zane was on the national team, and Soriano's obviously wrestled really well under lights and has wrestled freestyle a little bit in 2021. So I was kind of hoping Zane at least got one match to prove himself, and that's kind of how I viewed that first match. And I think Zane, maybe the thought process was that Zane wasn't cutting as much weight as Soriano was, because Soriano was pretty big. So maybe give Soriano that extra chance to kind of, you know, recuperate from the weight cut and give Zane that first match. So however it went, I think that was a big determination on how they wrestled that. The second day was going to be, you know, how they wrestled the first.
Yeah, I mean, that just shows you how deep we are. I mean, Soriano, what a talent, I mean, unbelievable. But then they put Zane in and he earns the spot Sunday night. Like, you got to assume that was pretty much the wrestle off. Like, once you tech the bronze medalist, there's no way they're not going with you for the finals.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Coach Zadok was really struggling with some decisions. It wasn't just his weight. You know, there was another decision that probably had to be made that was pretty tough on him, because you have two guys that could both win. You know, and Coach Zadok's number one mission was to win that, and that was how he was going to honor Team USA. So he has to put in the guy that he
Yeah.
felt at that time was going to give him the best chance to win. And you know, I felt like at the time, I think Nick could have probably won too, but I thought at the time it was the right call, the way Zane was wrestling.
Who was the other weight?
I think 70 kilos was a big decision. I know that they had Tyler Berger and Alec Pantello, both awesome wrestlers, and really uh, Tyler wrestled lights out against the Mongolian, and then you know Alec wrestled in the afternoon. You know, it was that would be a hard decision. I don't want to have to make those. That's not my place. I'm glad I just got to go there and help Zane out, and you know whatever happened. I know he would have held his head high, and he has that type of moral fiber, and I think Tyler Berger has it too. You know, and Nick Suriano, they didn't act like babies and you know leave the place and throw fits and whatever else. They were professionals, so it was awesome. Even
Did it?
everyone else, like even though our backups at 61, our backups at 65, and you got Evan Henderson, one of the best guys in the world, sitting behind Yanni, and he's not sure if he's wrestling and you know what the situation is going to be. So you know we've got some really high character on Team USA in both, the starters, and I wouldn't even call them starters just because the guy in the backup could have won the match just as easy. So
Yeah, and Marsteller actually beat the Iranian who beat JB last summer. I mean, that just shows you how tough he is. I mean, it's like,
no, Marsteller's he's a freak.
so when you guys are getting ready to go out there Saturday, everyone pretty much assumed we were going to win those duels. And, of course, anything could happen, right? But and you may have thought otherwise because you're just so deep into this. When you went into that duel against Mongolia, were you expecting that Yanni match to go the way it was, or is that one you had pegged that could go either way?
I mean, that guy's a bronze medalist, former bronze medalist. You knew he's really tough, and Yanni's coming off of, some competitions last week, and, I'm not in their camp or whatever. He got here a little bit later, so I don't know what his preparation was. I don't know what his mindset was. He's such a wrestling, fanatic that, I can't believe that he would show up unprepared, or that was just an unpreparedness thing. So, and that guy's he's really good from a couple positions. And, I think, just looking back, I think if they re-wrestle the match, it's something he could turn around right now. He obviously wrestled amazing in the final. So.
He really did. And like, just for that guy to be going from 145.5 to 149, traveling across the country, going to an Ivy League school, like, dude, it's just it's so much he puts on himself,
Yep.
It's just, and this is an era when guys are doing way less matches, but he's putting himself out there every chance he can get.
Yeah. No, he's special to have in our sport, and he's good with fans, and he's, obviously he's a student. You watch him, pick things up, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the finals in a little bit, but watching him kind of be like a computer in it, and like, oh, I see something, so.
Yeah. And when you guys are going out there, like at some point, as you're getting ready to walk out, it probably hits you that, all right, everyone here is representing Team USA in the World Cup. Like John Smith's wrestled in the World Cup, Randy Lewis in the World Cup. Like, does Coach Zadek give a little speech on like what it means to represent the USA, like before a big match like that, or is he kind of stay in the background?
It was funny because Coach Zadek wasn't actually in the arena. He had gotten sick and wanted to stay away, so he was doing a lot of remote decision making, and Coach Russell was the fire upper guy. So he did a great job. And I think for us, and I think for most of those guys, like they try not to be like, oh, Coach Smith was in this building, and like you said, Randy Lewis and all these great men. This was their team. This was their chance to win it, and I think they all kind of like gathered around. They could do something special together, and this would be their, brick in the wall type thing, instead of putting all that pressure of, oh, I got to live up to this name or whatever. So I think they definitely wrestled better for Team USA than maybe they would have just for themselves. But at the same time, I think, this was their chance.
And the dual meet really brings that out. Like you were saying, there's nothing more fun than a duel. I mean, and just for folks who don't know, how does the dual meet scoring work in international duels?
Okay. So each win gets you 1 point. So like if you win 6 matches, the duel is actually over. But if it's tied 5-5, it goes to these classification points, which actually really make it interesting because you could get tech fall. So a decision is 3, a tech fall is 4, and a pin is 5. But if I score a point, my team gets a point. So if you tech me to 11-1, my team gets 1, your team gets 4. If you beat me 8-2, your team gets 3, my team gets 1. So you constantly can score a point just by going out there. You can still fight for the team, even though maybe you're wrestling the best guy in the world and maybe you're not at that level yet. You could still, do something pretty special just by scoring a point, which was what Zilmer did, which the duel obviously wasn't on the line, but I really liked how, he still fought for the team and was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He's class act. I mean, again, just another guy where you put him in there and he wrestled tough at the Worlds. It's just like the project I'm doing now for an audio doc takes place in the 2000s. And man, you go back to that era for us to win matches at the World. Sometimes like you didn't see that. Like it's just so night and day from where we were in the 2000s to now. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're in a really good spot with USA Wrestling right now, especially USA Wrestling Freestyle and women's freestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. If we'll have time, I got to get your thoughts on this Greco situation, man. I'm upset to see it. So let's get to Iran, one of the world powers. You know, they took us right down. Well, I wouldn't say took us to the wire at the World Championships, but we're right there. And you know, wrestling is the most popular sport in Iran, so this was probably broadcast all throughout the country. What did you know about the I guess it's 125 and a half, 57 kilo guy Zane was wrestling going into that one?
So he's a younger guy. If you just go off of UWW's website, he wrestled in the Asian Championships, juniors, and wrestled U23s and a couple other little tournaments that wrestled there. But one trick you can do if you ever want to really research Iranian wrestlers, you take their name and you translate it to Farsi, which is the Persian language. You put it back into Google and YouTube, and you can find hundreds of matches. So I was able to kind of find a ton of matches on the guy. He wrestled Ugoyev this summer. He wrestled in the Iranian league, and a lot of the Russians were there since they weren't able to compete. So he wrestled Ugoyev. He wrestled Magomedov, the guy who was at 61 kilos. He's wrestled Iran's #1 guy. He's extremely talented. He's really good from a couple positions if you let him into him. So, we did know he was young and hungry, and guys like that, they will change from tournament to tournament a little bit, but he was pretty consistent. He was able to kind of, create a pretty good game plan for us.
What did wait, so the Russians go wrestle in the Iranian league? That's how, like, is the Iranian league legit? Like a
Yeah, no, it was, especially this year, I felt like it was really good. It's always good. I feel like it's always pretty good. They get huge crowd and small arena, and it seems wild. I'd love to watch it. I'd love to be there in person. It seems like a really, really an amazing event.
So have you found these matches online, like the Iranian league? You can find those on YouTube.
Yep, just
Wow.
take whoever you want. You just translate their name to Farsi and then put it into YouTube, and you'll find a ton of. I usually add the word wrestling at the end, but yeah, you're
And
able
for
to find
someone
quite a
like
few matches
Ugoyev,
on these
though,
sites.
he's as good as it gets. I mean, for him to go to
Yep.
that league, that's shit. Get him over here if he's willing to do that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, I think they pay pretty good. So from what I understand, the paycheck in the Iranian league is pretty sought after. That's where
Wow.
Sadakov was there. A bunch of them were there. So,
He was. So the
mhm.
Olympic champ was there.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, 2 Olympic champs.
Yeah, 2 Olympic champs. Yeah. Holy smokes. So is it, and just quick side tangent, how long is this season? Do you know? Like, is it 3 months or?
No, it's like I think it's not very long. At least like looking at the matches when they take place, it doesn't seem very long. Like I don't know what the schedule is, or I know that they draw teams and things like that. I'm not really sure what the bracket looks like because I've just really seen the matches.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting. Wow. So in going into the match for Zayn, outside of this wrestler specifically, you think Iran, you think underhooks, and they do a lot of underhooks for their heads on the other side. You know,
yeah.
I remember growing up, and I don't know what's right or wrong, but you always heard keep the head on the same side as the underhook. You rarely see them do that. How do you analyze like their underhook game?
Yeah, I mean, they're a couple things like they're real quick with like they throw their shoulders. So if you throw your shoulder with your underhook, your head's going to naturally kind of fall to the far side. And they're able to do a lot of things with their legs there and pressure. Where if you pressure just with your head, you're kind of letting your arm get out away from your body a little bit. They're able to kind of keep everything tight and kind of lock you in to where they can really use their legs and drive and things like that. They're really good. This particular guy doesn't though. That was one thing. There are a couple of their guys that will do that. Obviously, the 65 kilo, Yazdani, people like that. But there are a lot of them that they don't make the living off of it like some of their guys do. But I would say it's a good system to follow. They do that on their feet, and then they all a lot of them do the same kind of low lock gut wrench thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
And when you think the Zane's match, you know, there's a lot of pressure on that match in particular, getting things started, and you know, who knows what's going to happen in the team score. It's like, what'd you see on that match?
yeah, I mean, just I personally like I just wanted Zane to go out there and compete as hard as he could, And I think when Zane is a hunter and he's trying to score points and he took the first committed attack and scored, and I think it set the tone for the match. I do think he could have probably kept up with that pace a little bit more, but I think when he's focused on defending, he isn't as good. So you saw a lot of times, like maybe he got in a sort of a scramble or bad position, but he immediately kind of attacked it to his offense, which is something he's been focused on a lot. Like just get out there and wrestle and score points instead of worrying about, letting your head trying to become Isaac Newton or whoever, trying to figure out these high-end equations. Just go out there and score points. So he did a good job.
Man, what an awesome weekend for him. And then at the next weight up, Gross had a super young guy, if I'm not mistaken, right? Who is that?
Yeah.
Imar in there? Who's in there? Who is that? Is that Hunter?
Zane actually just walked in.
Zane, get him on here, man. We're bragging about you, Zane.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too much.
No, all good, man. Fun to watch you this weekend. Congrats.
Thank you.
So, going into gross weight, the guy was, I think he was 17. They said, but he was a U17 world champ. Were you surprised by this result?
No. He had a rough tournament. I think he went 0-3, and I think he got teched all 3 matches too. So he was a guy they probably have a couple. I know they do have a couple guys that are a little bit higher level, but maybe it was like, hey, they're not high enough that we can get this guy, more competition or get him elevated quicker. This is obviously going to make him a better wrestler, having gone through this experience. So I really wasn't shocked at what Gross was able to kind of do to him there. Gross was hard to wrestle too.
Yeah, and he was just doing some folk style stuff on top, man. Yeah. That guy probably had never even felt that. I mean, that was just total Seth Gross style.
Yeah, no, really good.
I mean, a U17 world champ, that's young. I mean, that would be like, obviously it's the U17, but I can't even imagine one of our guys that young being out there with this caliber of wrestlers. I mean, that's a tall order.
Yeah, and you see that a little bit more overseas than you do in America for whatever reason. I don't know. We tend to keep developing. Hopefully, when they're that age and kind of through. But I can remember watching Sajalayev when he was a cadet. I think the next year he either won the senior Europeans or something like that. They do have those special guys that do that, but this guy's not ready yet. But
for that, talk about one who is though. I mean, is it Amuzad? How do you pronounce the guy's name at 65?
I think it's Amuzad Khalili.
Dude, this guy, I mean, I think everyone loves watching him wrestle. I mean, the way he keeps his hips so far back, I mean, Yanni can get to everyone, and he struggles getting to this guy's leg. I mean, he wrestled great in this match. I mean, better than he did. Maybe not great, but better than he did. But man, it's so hard to penetrate that guy's head and hands defense.
Yeah, and he's so quick to get that underhook. Like I feel like, a lot of Yanni's kind of fakes and things like that. He was kind of falling into those underhooks pretty quick. Yanni did a good job at this time of staying grounded a lot. There's a lot of those like weird grounded calls. I'm still kind of confused at when it's a point and when it's not a point and whatever else. But, I feel like he saw something too. I feel like when he got him reacting a lot more, when he's able to kind of pull him forward, because he does keep his hips back, when he's able to kind of hand fight, that Amuzad Khalili did not like that. And I think that got him to reach a couple times. And the second time when Yanni hit that duck was so nasty, because you saw him in the first one, he kind of saw it. And then it was like a little computer out there. Like his mind was going, he's like, oh, I see it again. And then it was like the reaction time and everything was pretty awesome, and it's great to see him close the distance on him. I think, he's going to keep doing that and keep kind of putting things together, because that's what kind of athlete he is. From the outside, I watch him quite a bit, and you kind of see him progress, and he's all about progression, and towards like that 2024 Olympics, I think, by the time they get there, I think he's going to have it all kind of mapped out, like Goodwill Hunting, right? On the chalkboard, and the end result is just going to be this gold medal. So
I hope so. He's definitely one of our favorites and just great ambassador for wrestling. That little duck he hit, I mean, at that point, I think he was up at that point after that. Maybe he was up too, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought they actually missed a crotch lift for the Iranian. I thought he
kind of cartwheeled on his head a little bit.
Okay.
I saw that earlier too, where they let that go because he was on it. His head kind of stayed in contact, and you see his shoulders kind of pivot. I thought it was the right call, like looking at it real time. I haven't watched it the second time. Mm-hmm. The second time obviously was the actual crotch lift. So
got it. So so that's what happened, is that he didn't expose. He kind of went right on his head.
Yeah.
I thought they just flat out missed it. I was like, looked like you went over twice, but I wasn't saying anything.
You're not gonna call
It's
me,
like,
"Hey, you
I'll
missed
take
it."
it.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so you
funny.
brought up a great point though. Like, as awesome as it was to see him make these improvements, as a wrestling fan, it's really tough to see the U.S. being masters of this grounding rule. And it's not just the U.S., but it just seemed like a lot of times we're good at strategy, and like guys would shoot in the middle, drive, we drop to it and get pushed out. This is the first event where I can really remember it being so glaring. Maybe it happens all the time, but
Mhm.
is this the first one to you where it was just like, whoa? I
Well,
mean,
it's just, I mean, to be honest, like you look at Zane's match, Richards, there was 2 grounding calls where Zane was actually wrestling, where they left the mat, but they were in parterre, they left the mat, but Zane was scrambling, especially the second one. The second one was a terrible call, I thought. And then the other times, there were times where a guy shot, and like you said, they slid across the mat on their knees, or you get to your knees and you slide out. And it's always been called like you go out of bounds under attack. Even though you're in parterre, you go out of bounds under attack. And it's always been 1 point before. But I don't know if this was a great refereeing crew. I'm not 100% like if it was maybe there was some, I'm not 100% why they didn't or what the big inconsistency was. But yeah, no, that's got to go away. It's got to go away because sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And it just, anytime there's something like that, we're really working against ourselves in wrestling. It's already hard to understand, and we make it harder to where, I would say you're an expert in wrestling. You run a podcast, you watch a ton of wrestling. I watch a ton of wrestling. And if a call is being made and we don't understand who's going to score, then that's a problem. That's an issue that has to be sought out and fixed.
it's tough because I was for a while there on the just drinking the push out Kool-Aid, thinking college you need to go to push out because it removed the ambiguity of stalling. And like now the college rules, I don't really know exactly the letter of the law and what that action and push out means. So I was like, all right, push out points, great, but now I'm seeing this. But then it always was like if you're scrambling on the mat and someone gets a push out, what's happened then? Like, right, if someone shoots you, stop the attack, and then you're scrambling, then to me that's grounding. But if you're just, to your point, you haven't stopped anything and you're just sliding backwards, that's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah. I think it's pretty easy to make that change and make it quick. If you're on the mat and you're scrambling and somebody's in a leg attack and you end up out of bounds, so be it. But if I shoot on you and 4 feet from the outside and you drive you out of bounds and you're sliding on your knees, it's just, and there is no stop. You haven't stopped me. You haven't pressured back in. Like you go out of bounds in one motion, it's a point, and that's a pretty easy fix. Hopefully UWW is listening to this podcast and makes that change.
I felt for the Iranians a little bit because I'm like, man, it doesn't feel like home cooking, but I've just never seen so many beneficial calls go the US's way. And I'll take it because I feel like I can count to many where an injustice has been done to us. But whatever it is, it seemed like it was pretty consistent though for both teams.
No, for sure. No, they were making that same call the other way. Like it wasn't like that was one call that went the other way. So
yeah, but you saw the you saw the Iranian coach. I love those guys. They're just so passionate, man. Like it's just funny to watch them. I don't know who there's an older gentleman who was Matt's side at the beginning, but then this real animated guy. Who's that?
That's their head coach. So that's their head coach now. Used to have this guy named Kadim was their head coach, and I don't know, maybe he said something anti-government or something, so they got rid of him, and they got this new guy who's very pro-government. And man, that guy always starts in the back, but then when things get heated, he's up front. He tells the guy, "Get out of here." He's sweating, sweat's flying. I mean, he is drenched in sweat, and I don't know how he doesn't have heart attacks. I'm not 100% sure what his like blood pressure is or what he does, but he keeps himself in it. He is in it the whole time. So.
He's funny because he's like slightly overweight, and so they showed him like wiping himself down with his shirt. He lifted his shirt up, his stomach's hanging out. I'm just like, oh my god, the guy is just. But to your point though, he started in like the second coaching chair. By I think after Yanni's match, he's front side and he's going bananas, and it's fun to watch those guys. So I mean, for Rasul Hadim to be taken out, I mean that guy is one of the best. I mean. And I'd heard that Ali Reza DeBeer was running the show, but that guy's definitely not him because he's much smaller. So
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
this guy's a little more pro government. What they want as a government in there, guy that's going to help promote the
Yeah.
things they're promoting. I'm not 100%.
So after Yanni's match, then we get into some matches that are more like things could go either way. And I think the Iranians definitely thought that Baby Yazdani was getting the win at 70.
Yeah, he was not ready to wrestle as hard as Alec Pantaleo was about to wrestle. That was for sure. He walked out, he slapped hands, he kind of took his Yazdani kind of took a step back, and Pantaleo was on him and stayed on him. And man, he hit that first double leg and came up with a I think he went double and maybe changed single or whatever, but there was some horsepower and really wrestled a really good match for most of it.
He looks so strong. just a
Yeah.
just a thick dude, man.
Yeah, it was funny listening to one of the international guys I was there talking to, and he was pointing to him, and he's like 74 kilos. I'm like, nope, that's 70 kilos right there. That's a lot. There's a lot of muscle in there.
Yeah. No, he's I mean, up until the last little exchange there, really, controlling the match. That could have been, and we won by two matches. We won 6-4. So it's not like that's going to change it, but that one could have gone. So kind of break down what happened at the end there for folks who didn't watch it.
So I actually, to be honest, I was walking by the TV, and I've yet to see it live again. I personally thought it went 2-2 immediate, and we lost. So I kind of walked away, and then I heard there was a challenge. Came back later, and I found out Pantaleo. I've yet to rewatch the match, but looking at the duel, what would have happened though, just to clarify, is even if we would have lost that, which we didn't, and UWW looked at it, there was a challenge. I know Bela Glazov challenged it. Even if we would have lost that, we still would have won, because even with a 5-5 split on criteria, we were still going to win. So that's what's good about the fact Gross had a tech, and can't remember that Zilmer scored a point. I think that would have been the difference.
And Yazdani's a world, and folks for listening, this isn't the David Taylor Yazdani. This is, I don't even know if it's related or what, but
I've heard they are, but
okay.
I'm not 100%.
But he has been a world medalist before, right?
Yep. Yeah, he was a world champ, 65. I believe champ. So. Oslo,
Shit.
I believe.
So, okay, Oslo, got it. And Pantaleo, I mean, he's solid, but I mean, that's just how deep the U.S. is. I mean,
yeah, no, and I think, like I said, I felt like really Pantaleo out wrestled him, so it was really good. And Yazdani had last year at the Worlds, he had the infamous Israeli draw, so he had to not, I don't know if he weighed in or just forfeited after he weighed in, or I don't think he weighed in, but so he wasn't able, and he was probably on like most scorecards, probably people would have picked him or Zane. I feel like they were probably the two most common picks to who was going to win the world championships last year without Russia there. So having Pantaleo go out there and really wrestle him hard and was really inspiring. So
I think about all the stories of guys who go to Russia and train, and they say how like the Russians get irked that like we're so heavy hand fighting, they'll do a little finger wave, and that's not how you wrestle over there, right? Yeah. That's how Pantaleo was wrestling this guy. Dude, he was in his face, clubbing, pushing. Man. And man, it's just crazy that knowing that Iran had a chance to win the world championships this past year, and they still stuck to that principle of not, wrestling people from Israel. Like, that's crazy, because they left a lot of points on the board with taking him out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think it's, there's things that they deal with that are outside of wrestling that are bigger,
Yeah.
I don't think you put your family in harm's way for a wrestling match. I love my son enough that, if I thought something bad was going to happen to him, I'm not wrestling anything. So,
right.
They're dealing with different things than we ever even have to think about. So, feel really bad for him.
Oh yeah. It's not like it's his decision. I mean, he's just, it's way above him. So Pantaleo wins. And then the next match is next match is Nolf, which that's the situation where the guy had an underhook. I rewatched this like 4 times. He kind of pushes the wrist down, puts the head in the hole, and it's just, man, what a unique way to score from that.
Yeah, the Iranians will do that a lot from like if they can beat your arm on the non-underhook side, if they can beat that off your body, they'll slip their head in there, and they kind of find themselves in like a weird, like a head inside single or something like that. But he was able to kind of convert that to just circling behind him. Sajalive does that a lot too from his underhook offense. So yeah, it was slick. It was slick.
Now, was this the brother of the guy who wrestled Nate Jackson?
I'm not sure. I mean, they had the same name. I'm
Right.
not 100%. So I don't know.
Nolf wrestled. I mean, Nolf's as good as they come. He wrestled tough. He just couldn't get through there.
Yeah, yeah. He just got caught in a couple underhooks late, where just you could just see that time ticking. You know, he's got great attacks. You know, was not really getting him to bite on a couple of his fakes and things like that. So you know, I'm sure that's a match. I think that wasn't like one guy was way better than the other guy. That just one guy ended up with one takedown. So you know, I think you know, they re-wrestle. I think Nolf could beat him, but he obviously got the win yesterday.
It's crazy how much the underhook neutralizes guys. I mean, they just wait for stalemates because you can't, like, the Iranians are so good at it. They just, they can't even bust out of it. I mean, we're talking about Jason Nolf here.
Yep. Yeah, no. And really, to be honest, you can't do that. You can't let them shorten the match like that into pressure. Like, you have to keep, like, you look at what Taylor did with his underhook. Once he mastered like clearing it to some sort of offense, it kind of took Yazdani completely out of his game a little bit. You can't sit there and you can't clear it over and over and over again, because now you're just wasting all your time clearing underhooks. So, you know, I think you have to find a way to kind of generate some offense from that position itself. You know, I'll go back to talk about Yanni. Yanni, like, Amuzak Khalili was kind of looked like he was reaching for an underhook, and when he did, Yanni peeked that and hit that duck. That's how he kind of got to it. So, you know, I think it's ways of kind of generating things like that, because if you just let them in there, it takes a 6-minute match and makes it to where maybe you don't get to wrestle but for a minute or so.
Right. Yeah, David Taylor this year at the Worlds, I mean, he was just, once he stopped that, it kind of like threw Yazdani for a loop. He didn't have an answer for it.
Yeah. And I know we talked about it before on the podcast. I saw him do something that I never really saw anybody else do prior to Yazdani, at least, was just pop his elbow and then kind of get to the same side. We've been playing with it a little bit. It is really effective. It stops the guy from getting the pressure at all, and it just kind of beats his position really quick and explosively, instead of more aggressively and less just more of a passive clear. So it's good. It's good stuff.
So Nolf loses a tight one. I can't remember the exact sort, maybe like 3-1, 3-0. I'll post the full results, but Nolf loses a tight one. Then going into 79, JB, they showed him walking out of the tunnel. I've never seen a wingspan on someone's back like that before. The guy's looking jacked.
He's amazing, being that old, looking like that, making me feel terrible.
Man, like his back is just literally like a V, man. Just, it's insane how, at this weight, you know, the allowance and everything, he looks filled out, but man, he just looked like Tom Brady out there, dude. Like, going into that match, you're like, this guy's going to go forever.
Yeah, he's a professional for sure. He's great for the sport. Very well spoken, lives the right lifestyle. You know, he's great to have guys like him and Kyle Snyder. And so you can take your kid, point to him and be like, just do what he does. Just live like he does. Say the things he does. So he's a great role model for these guys.
And he loves the fans interacting, and, you know, we know that Iranians love Jordan Burroughs. Like, they freaking go nuts for this guy. And up until this match, they'd never beaten Jordan Burroughs in a match. And so JB gets up 4-0, and I remember thinking, there's no way this guy can come back. Like, there's no way he's losing a 4-0 lead, you know? What happened in your eyes, outside of the technical scores, as you look at the match?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, going into it, this guy beat Sadakov about 2 months ago in the Iranian league. So he's a full, I mean, you look at his results, he does a lot just like in Asians. I think like his one time at the Worlds, he went in like juniors in 2018. So like, he's like an Iranian product. Like, he wrestles a lot in the Asian games, and then a lot like in these Islamic games and things like that. He doesn't really get to the Worlds very much because they're super deep around his weight typically. And he's a 79 kilo guy that's full size. Like he's cutting a lot. As ripped as JB looks, like he's big. He's big and thick and strong. And I don't think you knew he was going to have a great gas tank. You knew he was going to be really conditioned. You knew he was going to be really strong. I think Burroughs kind of, after that first initial attack, I think it was, pretty hard to get him to bite on any of his fakes. I feel like the guy did a really good job of doing, controlling center and at the same time keeping his head between and moving his feet. So, the guy's super strong, knew he's super talented, knew he's going to be there at the end of the match. You had it in your head somehow Jordan was going to win. Like you saw it go 6-6, you saw him flee, get the cautions, like 6-6, he's going to get pushed out. He's going to do something. Like it's going to be this way. That's just what Burroughs does. Like has made me feel, has made other wrestling people feel when you watch him. Is just he's like Superman, and he gave his best. And I think, like I said, a lot of these matches could be re-wrestled today and with a different result. I think a little better tactically, move his head and get a little more angles on some of his attacks, and maybe put a couple more sprints in there. I think, it wasn't a match that I don't think there was people in that gym that knew that guy had the ability to beat him, knew he'd beaten guys that were just as good as him, and, was going to be a tough match. I think maybe some of the American audience that wasn't as familiar with the Iranians didn't really feel that way. So.
I mean, but think about that, though. I mean, you're watching this match knowing that he just beat Sidakov, who, for the folks who don't know, I usually mispronounce it, Sidakov. This is the best 74, I guess. Yeah, 74 kg guy in the world, hands down. I mean, he's won the world. He's won the Olympics. He's beaten JB twice. He wasn't and then he beat the Belarusian that beat Dake. So it's like, he's been as good as anyone's been at that weight. And so this Iranian beat him.
Yeah. And then he beat him 2-1, kind of, and Sadakov, I'm going to guess, walks around at like 76 kilos. Like he doesn't cut any, he's like infamous for his conditioning, and like he doesn't put any fat. He doesn't have a bounce. He doesn't like go up and down. Like he is a very strict, like steady weight. So in my head, like, it's like, yeah, you beat him, but you're 81 kilos. I don't know the weigh-ins for the Iranian league. The guy could have been 83 kilos. So you're talking, you're 20 pounds bigger than this guy. And they look like they were different weight classes. So, I mean, I think looking at him, I didn't think that that's a real thing. You knew he could wrestle hard. You knew he was going to give Burroughs a good match. But in the head, like, I think everybody expected him to win the match.
But you're confident though that like the American coaches, they knew that this guy was legit. I hope that they had maybe watched this match.
1,000. Everybody did. Anybody involved with the wrestling whole, wasn't looking past him, including Burroughs, his coaches, his personal coaches, the USA coaching staff. Everybody knew this guy was really good.
And for this guy, he's going to be remembered for this for the rest of his life in Iran. I mean, I'm only speaking because I did this documentary. I haven't released it on this Iranian wrestler from the 70s who defected when the revolution happened in 79. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to a bunch of Iranians, and they're just like, man, the culture, like they love wrestling, but they also really sympathize with like the African-American wrestlers from the United States, because they're also, underrepresented, and they feel that the whole Muslim community is underrepresented. Right. So they really empathize with Jordan Burroughs. And so for him to get a W, I mean, that's gotta be, obviously for anyone it's big, but for an Iranian, definitely a big one. And it was cool afterwards. He actually raised Jordan Burroughs' hand.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine the feeling that he had, that's like, yeah. But at the same time, it's like, who beat Joe Louis? Was it Rocky Marciano knocked out Joe Louis and like felt terrible about it? Like there's a part of that, like Jordan Burroughs is a hero. He's like, no doubt. He's like a figure that goes on Mount Rushmore as far as wrestling goes. And I'm sure that guy has a little bit of that, that today is super excited, but at the same time, like, oh man, I just knocked the goat off,
Right.
But at the same time, like Burroughs was unfazed. Like he's such a professional. Like he'd still be in that arena taking pictures right now. He stayed with everybody, signed everybody's stuff. Like everybody had a big smile on his face. His kids were there. Like, yeah, he's not happy he lost, but at the same time, like he's got high character. and I mentioned it before, is just, that. And if you're going to be a great wrestler, I don't think you can hide character anyways. Like, I think you have to have it, and he's got it in bunches. So he isn't going to be down for long. And let's see him being right there for another world championship next year.
Oh, no question. I was going to say, what was he like on the bench afterwards? Just normal or like?
Great. It's
Yeah.
great. He was out after. I mean, obviously no one likes to lose. These guys are ultimate competitors. He hated losing. But at the same time, like his character wasn't going to let him hide underneath somewhere or quit or go home or whatever. He went back out. He supported the rest of the team and, shook hands with people, was on the awards ceremony. Like I said, even though he lost, like the Iranians were going crazy for him still. Like, I love you, Burroughs, stuff like that. So, I mean, he's a special guy.
And so you think that, if you're Iran, you thought Baby Yazdani would maybe beat Pantelio. You're thinking JB, probably, you think maybe you lose that one. They're probably not thinking that, but, historically how it's gone. But then Zahid Karimi's legit.
Yeah, to be honest, in my head, I thought we were in trouble a little bit just because of I knew their 86, 92 and what they could have done at 92, 97 could really make it down to 5-5. And then you're thinking Zelmer's got this monster. He's got to figure out a way to score, not get tagged, like in my head. But Zahid is, he's a junior world champ. He's very, very good. We know what his capabilities are. It's just he hasn't done that on the world stage to a guy like Karimi. So, I think he goes out there and he scores, and I've seen him score on good guys before, and as the match went on, you're like, holy cow, he's going to do this. And that was really big because you knew in your head, you're like, whoever they put against Snyder is going to win. So then it's going to come down. If we could just pull these two off, then Snyder's the closer, and nothing goes down to craziness at the end. So.
And do you think it was a disadvantage for Iran to put Gazimpur against Snyder?
I think they knew they had to win that match. So I think I think they probably said to themselves, at least kind of my thought was like, if we win 92, if we can win 92 and 97, now that we lost 86, we got to win 92 and 97. Although they made the announcement prior, I'm not 100%, but they could have got it to a 5-5-ish match. Like they had to get it. They had to beat Snyder to make it 5-5. They kind of knew they were going to wrestle at heavyweight. So, I mean, you put your best guy out there to try to make that happen. And their 92 is really, really good too. I think they're 92, and then there's another guy, maybe they're 74. We're both U23 and U20 champs, I think, this year.
So that was the guy who Nate Jackson wrestled, U23 world champ. And then the guy Zilmer wrestled, U23 world champ. Maybe you're thinking of someone else too.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking of the guy who won David Carr's, so 74, the guy who beat Nolf was also. So they've got a crop of phenomenal guys coming up.
And they wrestle a fun way. Like, I love how they wrestle. I mean, most of the time they're scrapping and they're really bringing the heat, and they wrestle with a lot of passion. So it's fun to watch that. Okay, so Zahid beats Karimi, and then Nate Jackson. Man, love Nate Jackson. Just another guy who's like, there's so many guys on Team USA right now. They're having like a resurgence in their career. Like Chance Marsteller was down and out. He's back on. Nate Jackson, he's been at various points of his career. Even Zane, he's had, points where maybe you thought he was going to step into coaching, but he's back. So it's like Nate Jackson, another guy, Illinois guy.
Yeah.
Man.
Like not special either. Probably not really highly recruited out of high school. Just a worker and a great human being, just his life is together, and he's got all the ducks in the row, and it makes, him be better wrestling. He's got the discipline and everything in his life kind of in order, and it's really at the right time kind of panning out. So excited to see him for this year. But yeah, no, he hits him with that first double leg, and then it's a scrap for the rest of the time. So it was a really good match. That was a great match. He's ended up, I think, kind of the decider was, he was in that gut position where he was starting to maybe turn a little bit, and he was like, I'm not going. And there was that moment where his lock slipped and Jackson was able to step over. And I think that was like the whole the whole match was in that moment. It was like, I'm just not, I should probably give up. And this is really tight and this is really hurting, but I'm not going. And he's ended up stepping over and almost kind of getting the fall at the end. I think that was at the end of the first period, maybe.
Yeah.
And then just fought his butt off in the second.
Yeah, when he hit that double to start it, it's like, I don't know if anyone in Iran can even like demonstrate that type of fast twitch. Like, it's crazy.
No, I don't think so. I've never seen him do it. I've never seen, he's got super long arms and he's got no fear and there's no like hesitation or whatever. He's got a great double leg, and it's not, I wouldn't call it like a Burroughs-esque double leg. I wouldn't say Pantello's got a Burroughs-esque double leg. That's a Nate Jackson double leg, and it is money. It hits like a freight train.
Definitely. We'll save Snyder, Gassenport for our last topic, but I want to ask you: is this the backup for Zaire at heavyweight?
The backup. That's the craziest thing.
What?
Is this kid is 18 years old, and he's behind a guy that's like 20, 21. So I mean, I don't know how old this guy is, but he's looking at like being the best guy behind. I mean, it's not like he can go up, and he's not going down. I'll tell you that much. That guy, he may be in 2 years not able to make weight. He is a full heavyweight right now at 18, and he's good. He's a good
dude.
wrestler. So yeah, Iran is lucky at the heavyweight position right now.
They're all those dudes at those upper weights. They just look so like physically put together and just intimidating. That's the only way to put it, man. They're just scary to look at.
Yeah, they come out there. They all got the same haircut. They're all about really thick shoulders, really thick hips, and a little bit of hair on them and their backs, and like
shoulders are covered with hair.
Yeah, they look like they've been through like war of some sort. And it's like, man, I don't know. That's a hard looking man. Even the kid that Zane wrestled walked out there, and I'm like, man, this kid. They said he's young, but I don't know, man. He's got like a full beard and like doesn't look like a hard person.
Like if the average person felt like one of these dudes grabbed their forearm or their wrist, like I don't think they realize how strong these dudes. And not that our guys aren't. Don't get me wrong, but these guys just look freaking intimidating. That's the only way to put it, man. They just come out there, just and their style is that way. They're physical. When they throw an underhook, if your face is in the way, that's an uppercut.
Yeah, no,
they're punching that thing straight up, and it's like really just an aggressive way to wrestle. I'm sure it's exhausting. And then the main event, I really tip my hat to Iran for making this match happen. Gassenport, I can read off the stats, but you know him better than I do. 2-time world champ. He's beaten Jaden Cox a number of times. Tell everyone about this guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's super talented. Has been wrestling. I think probably his first world medal was like in 2015. So he's probably about Snyder's age-ish. So, I mean, he's started off young and did really well. I think he was at 86 kilos. So I know he started off at 86 and kind of worked his way up to 92. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's super talented and really, really a good wrestler. And, I think Snyder, kind of listening to him and, kind of trying to soak in when he talks and things like that, he wanted the best wrestler there. So I think when he found out who he was wrestling, like he was just, thank you, thank God, thank you for letting this match happen. So he wasn't shying away from it. He was ready to wrestle.
And like, how many times will he put the team result on his back and just go out there fearless? This is no hesitation with him.
Yeah, no, he's a man of faith, really strong Christian, believes in just doing his best, and he's going to let the chips fall, and he lets wrestling just be wrestling, and I think there's something powerful in that, where he's not taking the anxiety and everything else that we kind of carry sometimes, and he's able to just be like, all right, I trust God, I trust my preparations, and it's pretty special. Like I said, we're lucky enough in this age to have some really good role models, and I'm glad for me having a young son in wrestling that I could point to him and be like, do what this guy does. He's doing it right.
It's such a change from the era of like the 90s, where if you lost a match, you're kicking trash cans, people are screaming, and like it's just a totally different thing, that
it's
we
like
have.
The IKWF sectional, right? No, for sure. These guys are not. They're professionals. And I'd go back and I just told our guys this story, and he loses, and obviously he's not happy. But talk about his character. They gave me these stack of like papers to hand out to guys, like little like diploma looking things. And I don't know if anybody wanted them, but I'm like searching for people trying to hand them out. I go back there and he's cleaning up our warm up area, like throwing all the bottles away just by himself. And I'm like, dude, this is why you're great. You're great because your character is this way. Like you saw some bottles on the ground, you weren't gonna let Team USA get the black eye for having a dirty thing. You took it on yourself. So they're all like this. Like every one of the guys on that team, and I could say great things about them all. They all have very, very strong high character.
Did you pick anything up from Coach Varner while you were there? These guys are like the Bill Belichick's, right? They don't say anything.
I watched every. I went in there early for weigh-ins, so they would do weigh-ins at like 8:00, and Team USA would leave at 7:15 to go over there. I would leave at 6:30 because I knew Varner was working out with Snyder, and they would be the only ones in the gym. So it was just Varner and Snyder, and Nolf was there, but sometimes he worked out, sometimes he didn't. But I would watch them pretty intently. I think that they do a great job with their guys, and I think you're kind of a fool of a coach if you're not really looking around and seeing who the best guys are and what they're doing to prepare themselves. So yeah, no, I picked a couple things up.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, again, just an awesome place for wrestling to think about, all the guys and just all their coaches coming together. And I mean, all the coaches, it's like Brandon say, Olympic champ, it's like just so many guys in there. And it's like Mark Perry's there, you're in there. It's awesome. It's just so fun to watch. Let me ask you.
You have like Brandon Slay, Olympic champ, and McCoy, world champ, and then this guy from Illinois, that's farm kid from Illinois, and then Mark Perry's there.
Yeah. I know, man.
At some point, somebody's gonna realize I'm in there and be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
That's how I feel in this podcast, bro. I really do. Like, yeah, it's funny like that though. Now, the weigh-in for Sunday, when did you guys weigh in? At noon or like
8:00? So it's the same weigh-in both days. So
wow.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like I didn't really get why you even have a weigh-in then. If you're gonna weigh in at 8 and wrestle at 6, let's just cancel the weigh-in for the second day. But they had it, and there were some teams that wrestled like third place matches and things like that wrestled a little bit earlier. But there was a ton of like it was almost back to the old days of having just such a very long time to recover.
Yeah. And I know we're about to wrap up here. The world team, I didn't get the chance to watch them, but they almost beat Iran, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, it was super close duel. They had some visa problems with the guy. It was funny. Musakayev wasn't able to be there. But they found a Kyrgyzstan guy that actually was training in Champaign the week before that won the Bill Farrell, and they're like, hey, you should come. One of the Kyrgyzstan coaches was on the world team. They brought them out. But it's like anything else. I feel like Iran won that duel because they're a unit. Whereas, like, not saying that the world team didn't wrestle well or wrestle hard. It's really hard to wrestle for all of these hired guns. And you see this in college wrestling a lot. You see this in high school wrestling when all these kids kind of transfer in and, that team doesn't necessarily gel right away. I feel like when you kind of grow up, I mean, a lot of these Iranians, and I don't know if the 74, like you said, 74 and 92 could be brothers, like they grew up wrestling together. And when they were 7, 8, 9 years old. So it's pretty easy for them to fight for each other, and I think a lot of these guys that have been on multiple World Cups together in the US feel the same way. Like it's easy if you're Zane Richards to look at, Kyle Snyder and be like, oh, I'm fighting for this guy. This guy is, and know that Kyle Snyder is going to fight back for you. So I think the World Cup, the world team, it's a great idea. I'm not sure if it's ever going to be a real team that's going to pull out a real gutsy team effort.
Right.
I don't think you wrestle better for a team if you're on the all-world team. But I know for a fact that you can elevate yourself in a dual team format to the point where, like, I'm going to wrestle because I can do things for somebody else that I can't do for myself. Like I would, walk out into traffic and get hit by a car for my son right now, right this second. And I feel like that if you can kind of bottle that up in a miniature fashion and get it into a team atmosphere, these guys can go out and compete for dual team matches and dual team points like they just never could in a tournament that they just were by themselves in. So, it's a cool idea, but I'm not really sure wrestling wise if it equates in a dual format.
And this goes into there's a million things I'm going to ask you about. I'm going to limit myself to 3 rapid fire questions. We'll be out of here in 5 minutes.
Okay,
To me, having the World Cup at this time of year is like having the national duels for NCAA wrestling in May. Like, why is this tournament always 2 months after the biggest event of the year when everyone's kind of in their down period?
No, you got to have it now. I mean, that's the bad thing, is because you have so many deciding tournaments later on. And we ran into this with Japan. Japan's World Team Trial starts the Emperor's Cup next week, so they couldn't send their best team. So if you get too far into 2023, guys can't do it because they're doing events that decide their world and Olympic team. So it has to be kind of now. In my opinion, that's how I think it is, but I'm
Got it. So we saw the question 2. We saw the World Championships for next year. They're moved to Belgrade again.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know for sure if Russia is banned, or is there a chance Russia may be there?
And I'm obviously I'm just reading things, but I saw the first positive thing kind of come out where there was a suggestion of letting them back in. So, and I had heard that maybe one of the wasn't the Wrestling Federation, it was another one that said that they were pretty hopeful they were going to get to compete next year. And it's got to happen. Like, I don't know why we're even still talking about this.
Especially in the Worlds before the Olympics. This is
if it doesn't happen next year, they're done.
They're not in the Olympics. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to bypass the Ukraine ladies winning. I can't even imagine the emotions they're feeling with everything that's going on right now. For Team Ukraine to win the World Cup, China beating Japan is, I mean, knowing the history China and Japan have, and just, historically, but also you think about the Japanese women, were they not there because of the Emperor's Cup as well?
They didn't have their best team, but they had a good team.
Yeah.
I would think their team was a little better than the men's team, but China's got a coach from Makhachkala, Dagestan, has been one of their coaches. So you're going to see a positive swing in the Chinese Women's Federation here.
Last thing, it's a dark subject. Greco, I'm sorry to ask. I just want to know. You don't have to say too much. Does this, because they're canceling the position of general manager, is there still a head coach like a Bill Zadek for Greco, or no right now?
Right now, I don't think so. Right now, I think that they're kind of, like I said, I'm not in the decision-making process. I'm not any part of it. So everything I hear, I hear from people that are inside of the coaching system or the athlete system. I've got a few athletes that are wrestling Greco. So, my job is just to make sure that they have what they need. But at the same time, it seems like hopefully a decision will be made pretty quick in which direction they're going. It doesn't sound like they have it sounds like they have an idea. I read something where they said we're not opening up the position, but so that to me seems like they already have somebody kind of in mind to take it over. So it just needs to be changed. I mean, that's the thing, is right now we're doing the same old thing, just spinning our tires, and it's like anything else. If you're stuck in the mud and you just punch the gas harder, you're just going to get further sunk. So I think we need to throw some salt behind those tires or do something. We have to figure out something else. And right now it's just not working. So
I was hopeful that there was going to be a big change, but I don't know what happened. It doesn't really matter. I just saw that the position was closed. So I'm like, is USA Wrestling pulling funding for a head Greco coach? And that would be worst case scenario. And that's not what it's going to
I wouldn't think that that's a possibility.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm not in the position to know either. So.
Well, Coach Medlin, it's an honor to have you on. Your knowledge of international wrestling is unparalleled, and I really appreciate you taking some time for us. We send nothing but our best to Zane Richards on a career performance this weekend. Just awesome to see that, and thanks for coming on and giving us a breakdown.
Thanks, man. I really, really do appreciate it. Enjoy your podcast. Makes those drives to Iowa pretty good. That's all I listen to on the way there. So
wow, I love it. Thanks, brother. Take care.
All right, see ya.